Hi there, everyone. I'm Reisa Marlowe, and you are watching Reisa's Rockin' the Spa. Tonight's guest is Melissa Cartier, and she is the broker owner of Cartier Real Estate Group. Hi,
Hi,
Melissa.
Reisa. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. So let's talk about some things, okay? Let's talk about some real estate stuff
Sure.
and see if we can get ourselves in trouble. No, take that back. Okay. I understand that because I've been hearing from a lot of people and, people I know putting their homes on the market and so forth, that real estate is booming in this area right now. So as somebody who is immersed in that world, would you say that's true?
It's absolutely true. This is definitely the busiest real estate market I've seen in the past 13 years. And I mean, at least in the capital region, we've always kind of been in a bubble where we've had a really strong market despite, fluctuations throughout the country. But this is unlike anything I've ever seen. And several people have remarked to me that it's kind of like the bubble before it burst, in 2004, 2005. I started in 2007, so I didn't really experience that except as a potential purchaser. We were new to the area and trying to buy then, and thought the prices were climbing and, at the time. And they never really did drop here. And so the kind of people are now wondering, will they come back down ever here, or is this going to continue for the long haul? But for sure, this is the busiest market I've ever worked in.
Do you have any feelings about that as to whether you think it's going to continue, slow down? I mean, obviously, nobody knows, but just wondering, like, your feeling.
I mean, right now, my prediction would be that it would probably plateau, much like it did then. I mean, when I started, it really wasn't that the prices were dropping much in 2007, 2008, but the sales were stagnant, and it wasn't a seller's market. It swung back to a buyer's market, which could potentially happen here too. It's certainly been a seller's market for a couple of years. Mostly it started with a real slowdown in inventory the past probably almost 2 years. The inventory started to really drop. And then this year, we felt that more than ever, even before COVID pandemic hit, the inventory was very low. And so the demand was really high. But then all of a sudden, the demand was just ramped up even more so.
Do you think that that's in particular towns in this area, or mostly Saratoga Springs or Clifton Park or what have you? Or is it pretty much like more across the board in this area?
A lot of people ask me that if it's just, kind of Saratoga, but it's definitely been everywhere. We have listings. We work from Albany all the way up through the Adirondacks. And so we've seen it at every price point too throughout each market. And that's what's been really interesting is, we have listings in Guilderland that sell in 4 showings in one day. And then we've had listings up in the Adirondacks and Johnsburg that have sold fairly quickly. So, it's been really interesting to see that it's really kind of the entire, I always say the capital region, but I'm sort of including the North Country in that as well.
Yeah, that was going to actually be my next question is this a sort of a particular, the entry level, first time home buyer that's really peaking right now? Or is it, across the board in all the different markets, even in the high end market, is it the same thing?
Surprisingly, yes. I mean, I've had a few sales over $1 million in Saratoga over the past 2 years, I guess, right? And the first 2 were newer homes. They sold within probably 2 months. One of them, maybe one was 2 months, one was 4 months. And that was quick for the over 1 million point in Saratoga.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had 2 other transactions last year in another upscale neighborhood in Saratoga where I had one listing for 1.5 years to get it sold over $1 million. And it was a wonderful home. It didn't need, any real work or anything like that. It was just the market for that price point was low. And so every time we would meet, I'd meet with the sellers and we'd go over the stats and I'd say, oh, well, 2 homes have gone pending, since we listed 6 months ago over between $1 million and $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day for another client, I was looking at the market stats between like $1 million and $2 million in Saratoga, and there were 15 pendings right now. And that's not including the ones that have already closed, and it's not including the listings that are active and under contract, but like officially pending, there were that many.
Wow.
I mean, you can see it's a huge increase even in that price point. And the very same neighborhood where I had one for 1 year and we closed on it during the pandemic, thankfully. There were 2 homes that have sold in the past I don't know, several weeks that sold with multiple offers for over asking. So, you know, it's just been a real increase in every price point.
All right. So tell me why. Who are you seeing coming in? Who are these new? Are they new people? Are they people just within the market, within the, just moving from a neighborhood to a neighborhood? Is it, a mixed bag, or do you see more of one particular thing than another?
For our brokerage, we've seen the most in local buyers. I mean, everybody is asking me if it's all, people moving up from downstate or, from the city or Westchester County. And there's certainly they're a portion of the buyers, but especially when we first opened up, as soon as, and during the pandemic, we had calls from people down there, but often they couldn't travel to see homes. We couldn't let them in homes. So there was interest from the city, but there wasn't a lot seen. As soon as things reopened and we were allowed to show homes, it was interesting because all of the local people, it was like they were, pent up in their houses and they had time to think about all the things that they didn't love about their current space, right?
Right.
It was like the list, and they knew exactly what they didn't want next house. And the biggest most people wanted was space, outdoor space. And where, I live in a rural area, you live in a rural area, right outside of Saratoga, a lot of those homes have always taken longer to sell. But suddenly, these properties with acreage were so much more appealing to people. Because I think people just felt so confined. If you didn't have a lawn to go walk your dogs in, or quiet streets that you could walk on, you were really, kind of going crazy. So I think people also want to be more sustainable on their own. So they're looking for gardening space, which they didn't, before. They need to cook now. I mean, I've had so many clients that have told us that now they're into cooking where they never did before.
Me.
Yeah.
Totally.
You as well.
I mean,
yeah.
Gee, like as soon as really the pause hit, I was thinking like, ooh, what can I make that I haven't made in the longest time? I mean, I literally, I pulled out all these things that I hadn't eaten in the longest time. Like I made tuna noodle casserole.
I remember that. Yeah.
Right. Remember that?
Yeah.
I know, it's like, those silly things, sweet and sour meatballs. It was like you had no other entertainment. Let's bake a cake. It's like
dinner was the highlight of everyone's day, I think. Yeah.
Dinner was the highlight of everyone's day. Right. The morning it was listening to Governor Cuomo, and at night it was making dinner. I know. And I think that that's really true, whether it's here or wherever. People are sort of motivated to be outside of their home, to have somewhere, because it's safe, right? You don't have to go anywhere, and you can go outside and do something. So yeah, I think that I could see how that's absolutely true. Same thing for condos though, and townhomes. Same thing in that area, or more in the single family?
I've definitely seen more in the single family home. I've had some, specific clients that have come and said they didn't want a condo or a townhome because they didn't want, when they were scared and worried about being sick, they didn't want other people that close to them. So, we have had sales in those categories, but not certainly as much as people who wanted single family homes.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah. I think that's probably, I can totally understand it. And it's really interesting. We don't often think of real estate being sort of a psychological buy.
Right.
Right? Or like emotional, psychological.
I do, because I go through it with people, so often. But yeah, I mean, it's a really important purchase for people, and driven by so many things. But I think this time it's driven by, just totally different factors, where before it was people think about entertaining and, right, the people that they're going to have over to their home. And now people are going into it like, what do I want out of our next home that we don't have here, so that if I'm shut in this house again, I have everything that I need. So I mean, parents are looking for homeschool areas. I mean, nobody brought that up before.
Yes.
Home gyms have become super popular because a lot of people don't want to go back. So, suddenly, even if the basement's not finished, they want to make sure the ceiling height is there so they can, push weights over their heads or whatever, run on a treadmill.
Right. Sure.
Space.
Even I've noticed in looking at advertising for homes that people are advertising homeschool rooms.
Exactly. Right. Used to be a formal dining room. Now
right. In the old days, it was a dining room.
Exactly. So yeah, in our comments now, we're saying things like that, and it's just funny because you wouldn't have, thought to ever call it a homeschool space before, because that used to be
exactly
buyers. But it's the funny thing to me is though that school districts is still super important to buyers. They're thinking about school district, whether they have children or even if they're keeping them home and going virtually. They are still, they care about, I guess, where they're getting their virtual learning from, which has been neat too. So as long as the home has Wi-Fi,
Yeah,
people seem to be very happy with
right.
it.
Well, yeah, I think all these things are going to become really important, right? Um, Something else that I think is interesting I think has changed in the real estate market in the past, probably within the past 10 years, and I looking for your opinion on that as well, um, is all these reality shows, Flip or Flop, Love It or List It, Love It or List It, the Magnolia Home Show, right? Do you find that has changed the way that the market works, and that the expectations that people who are coming to look at properties have about those properties?
I definitely think it's affected people's expectations. Sometimes I find the HGTV, side of things to make our jobs more difficult because of people's expectations. But
Sure.
sometimes it depends on the buyer, right? So sometimes on the buyer, it gives them more vision for what a house could be, which they wouldn't have seen. If they hadn't seen Chip and Joanna rip a wall down and do it, they wouldn't.
Right.
Probably the biggest challenge from them is that in the Northeast up here, we don't have shiplap hiding behind all of our walls. So that's a big letdown.
You don't?
Big letdown. So you gotta go to Texas apparently for that. But people are adding it, and that's fine. They're good with that. But so for the most part, I think it's made it kind of trendy and glamorous to be in the house flipping business, or for people to invest in their homes, which I think is great because people always need to do work on their homes, right? Even if you're buying a new house, there's still going to be projects. You need to be prepared for that. So for the most part, I think it's been kind of really great at educating people on what they can do, with a house. But sometimes, depending on which show it is, they come in with expectations and don't realize that how many things vary just by real estate market. So for example, in the Capital region, a seller isn't required to do any repairs based on home inspections. A buyer does the home inspections to protect themselves. It states right in the contract that the seller isn't required to do anything. But a lot of times people come with, this litany of items that they want the seller to address, and they aren't considered major defects. So the buyer can't get out of the contract for them, but they just want the seller to remedy everything before closing. And we have to explain to them that, that's not how it works in New York.
Wow, that must be difficult. Does that happen a lot?
Yes, a lot. The way I handle it is I address this with every single purchaser before we write an offer. I meet with people and go over the process, how it's going to work. I show them a purchase contract beforehand, and I always highlight that line that says, we're going to do all these inspections at your cost, to protect your investment, but the seller is not required to do anything. So, you kind of have to just temper those expectations in advance so that when you get there, that doesn't mean people don't still ask. Obviously, there are, and there are sometimes where it makes sense. If it's a safety issue, something's, could ignite or something. Obviously, you want that fixed sooner rather than later, right?
Right.
But, we've had a lot of challenges because people are overspending in a lot of their minds on things right now. There has been a lot of pushback on inspection items and appraisals to sellers to try to recoup some of those funds, which has been really challenging. So
yeah, I would think that that's hard.
Yeah.
And the other thing that seems interesting to me, and I don't know, I'm a layman in this area, so I don't really have the perspective that you do, but it seems to me that at times buyers on the other side of it have an inflated idea of the worth of their property. Sometimes go ahead. I'm sorry.
Did you say buyers or sellers? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, the seller.
Okay.
Yes, the seller. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
The seller has a kind of because we love that thing, right? It's our home. Right. And, for whatever reason, it seems like people have some idea that their properties are like worth more than, and I've heard that from, real estate people who are my clients and friends have sort of, lamented that it seems as though people, they're not really realistic.
Yeah, that's also a challenge most of the time when we meet with sellers. And that kind of always has been, throughout my career. And usually, you know, what the way we obviously bring comparables and we show people what we think it's worth. And I always tell people, first of all, I'm always on the optimistic side. I'm always happy to try it at my seller's price. I always tell people that, you know, as long as it's within reason. You know, I'll say, this is my gut, you know, this is what I think we could definitely get. I'd try it here if I were you. And then if they want to go a little bit higher, you know, just as long as I can feel confident that I can build an argument for that value, you know,
Sure.
I'm always happy to try it, because every now and then they're right. You know, there have been times where, many times where they've been really wrong. And eventually we heard it and we've gotten there, you know, but, and I've talked to so many other realtors over the years who, even back before I started my own brokerage, I was at a much larger company, and another agent would say to me, I can't believe you took the listing at that price, you know? And I said, well, I'm willing to show the seller that I will work to try to sell it at their price, you know, and if they don't agree with me, they might think I just want to sell it fast.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to
Right.
invest the time and the money to sell it and get them as much as I can. And it makes people trust you more. You know, if it's okay with me, if they don't agree with me right away, I'll try it at their price. You can always adjust, you know, there's no negative connotation to lowering a price. So I'll give it hell.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice way to do it too, because you do kind of then respect the feeling that that person has for their home. You know, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
And so that actually, while you were talking, I was wondering, like, how did you get involved in the real estate business? Like, you know, did you get involved?
Something my father always told me that I would be good at. And you know how you're like, I mean, I was in marketing and the supportive sales. So I'd gone to school for writing and marketing and worked at an ad agency. And then 2011 happened and the ad agencies lost a lot of money from, you know, and the projects weren't as fun as they were before. At the same time, I had met my husband. And so I had moved to the New Hampshire market. And so I worked on the client side. And then I came back to Saratoga and I worked at a small agency here, a boutique agency. And I had my first child and I ended up pregnant with my second one quicker than I had really planned, right? And I'm flying back and forth to Phoenix for work all the time, and which was taking its toll on me. And while I loved what I was doing, it just, you know, wasn't always the most fulfilling, and I hated that I had to travel. So, and my dad kept saying it. And so I thought, well, if I was going to do it, you know, I could time it with my maternity leave and kick off the business then. So that's what I did. I got my license when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I, you know, went out on maternity leave and didn't come back and just launched it then. So probably crazy. Looking back, I'm like, I had a, you know, less than 2-year-old and then a newborn and started my real estate. I don't know, but you know how it is, you hit the ground running, and I got rookie of the year the first year. I sold more than any of the other new agents. So that just kept going from there. But
well, that's pretty cool. And so when did you decide, like, okay, I'm going to go out on my own? How did you make that step? Like, what was the key?
I was always an independent agent. I never did the team thing. You know, I always worked independently, and I had been with Realty USA and they let me, you know, run my own show, which was great. And I was really happy with them. And I always knew it was something I wanted to do. Like I always pictured a little, you know, Main Street office. Small. I grew up in a small business with my parents, and that's what I always thought I would do, is have this little boutique, you know, real estate business. Mm-hmm. And I thought I would do it just based on my personal life when my kids, you know, were in high school or college, because, you know, then I thought they wouldn't need me. But the company that I was working
with. Oh, right. Wait, did you actually say you thought they wouldn't need you?
I was younger. Yeah. Now I realize.
Throw that one out the window. Right. That, you know, they only don't need you when you need them.
Yes, that's the point. That's very good point. Sometimes they don't want to be stuck with you. I'm learning it now in the teenage years, but
yeah.
But yeah, so the company was bought out by a much larger company, and things were changing, and it was a new brand in the Saratoga market and Capital Region that nobody had heard of. And I just knew right away, as soon as I got the email, you know, that it was happening, that I just didn't want to invest my business time presenting a new brand to the market if it wasn't mine. So I was just like, you know what, it just pushed me to do it. I got my I think I already had my broker's license, but I got the LLC set up and started with the marketing and advertising of it, and just got everything in the works within a few months.
Wow. Nice. And so did you feel like it just then, you know, like one thing led to another and blah, 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 blah. And
yeah, it's been basically, you know, a lot of grinding ever since then, but it's really come together. Yeah, I started, one other woman who is an independent agent as well at that company asked if she could come along. I just had mentioned what I was doing. I said yes, and I had an assistant, and that was it. So we started, just the three of us, and it was great. I mean, we had a lot of people that just followed us. When you're working with a realtor, you're not always thinking about who the broker is. With these big companies, you don't ever meet anybody else there, and so this really gave me the opportunity to build an environment that really benefits my clients. And the market has changed, or the industry, I should say, has changed so much since I started 13 years ago that it's so transparent now, with
So like how? What's
online.
right? So what's so different? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the things I was always worried about being able to provide to my clients that larger company gave to my clients when I was starting out in the business was, they had so much buying power with advertising. So they had like the back page of the Times Union where they would put open houses. And that's the only place people would go look to know what the open houses were, right? Well, now nobody looks at the newspaper, I could put ads in there, but everybody's online. Zillow, TrulyARealtor.com, they don't give any, and those are the three biggest sites don't give any weight to the size of your brokerage. So it just leveled the playing field, and any boutique brokerage can look, just as their listings can look just as great and usually better than the bigger brokers, because we have the time to put into making, our listings appear more, because for us, it's quality, it's not quantity, instead of having thousands of listings put out there, we have 10 to 20. And so we take our time and invest, in each one.
Right. And so actually something that I did notice about your brokerage that seems to be different than other brokerages is that you tend to really take the homes that you're representing and showcase them. Like more than just list it, you do a video. So it's like a sort of, you give it a home page, right? So yes. So what has sort of triggered that in you? Because that, to me, I just think it sort of puts it on a different level, and it makes it's almost more art. It almost has a more artistic bent to it that like appeals to you artistically to look at the property that way, not just reading through or going through pictures.
Bathrooms. Yeah, that's really nice. I love hearing you say that, because we do put a lot of time into that. So like I said, I came from an advertising background and a writing background. So, and really when I was at the first ad agency, my job was more like market research. I was an account planner. So my goal was to figure out who the target audience was and then how to communicate to them. So I approach every single listing the same way. I think of who the target audience is, who would be the perfect buyer for this house, and what are the different attributes to this house that would make them fall in love with it. And I don't care if it's a colonial where I've been in the same floor plan 20 times that year. There's always something unique about each home, and there's a feel from each home. And so we try to create a brand. We name our houses. We don't just put the street address online. We tell the story of the house. And I mean, I write these and do this for even the other agents in my office too. So even their listings that, aren't my direct clients, we try to present the same way, and it's at every price point. Everybody gets the same treatment, whichever house it is, because to someone there's one buyer out there who's going to fall in love with that house and carry that brochure around, or watch the video 500 times before the closing. Fall in love with it. And I mean, it, like you said it before, it is a very emotional purchase, and so I think people want to feel like it's glamorous, or it's been done properly at every price point, whether you're spending 150 or $1,050,000. So
yeah, it's because it is something that you could walk into a million houses, but there's that click that you go into one thing and you're like, oh, this is it. And every time, like right before I hopped on this call, I'm writing one for a colonial that's in the town of Greenfield that was built in 1820.
Wow. So, yeah, and then tomorrow we're listing one that's in Geyser Crest that's, I think, built in 1980, something like that. So, and it doesn't matter how many times I'll sit down and I'll think, oh gosh, what am I going to say? And then, I just kind of go back through the photos, and I take a ton of notes at my listing appointments. And so I kind of just read through everything again and think about how I felt when I was in the house and kind of the flow and the vibe, and just go for it, and it's funny because I'm never copying and pasting from one. There's always something to say different house,
Let me see. Colonial.
Yeah. Where's
Like,
one from the 1800s? Yeah.
exactly. So no shiplap. You're not
Right.
expecting shiplap.
Shiplap.
No.
Only in the new house.
Okay. Well, what can you do? Okay. So here you are. Do you have like what are your dreams? Do you have a dream for this? Do you see, are you like, yes, I'm here. This is what I want to do. Is there anything else with real estate you want to do? Do you want a magnolia, whatever home
I
you're,
want my products in Target. Yes.
right?
That's funny. People ask that a lot. I often
I'm
feel
sure.
like I don't have time to think much ahead, so it's,
Oh, yeah. Oh, really?
yeah, exactly. I'm just trying to get done what I have to get done right now. I would really love to write a book. I've said that my whole life, and my husband is constantly nagging me to set time aside to do that, and he's right. So maybe it'll end up being more of a business real estate book instead of, nonfiction or fiction like I'd always thought, but I would really like to
Oh,
something.
interesting.
There is probably, when the kids do leave for college, I would probably like to have a brokerage somewhere down south and kind of go back and forth, season
Oh,
or two down
that
there that I would
sounds
work with
nice.
and oversee offices where I could go back and forth and stay warm in the winter, because I've shown a lot of houses in the snow and the cold over the years, and I wouldn't mind, missing one winter. But it seems like to me, whenever it's
Yes.
20 below, I'm showing this, foreclosure with no heat and thinking, why am I? It's always on the coldest days of the year.
Yeah. So do you have suggestions for people who are entering the market? Suggestions for buyers, suggestions for buyers.
Okay. I mean, I think one of the biggest things is that you have to choose a realtor and an attorney and a mortgage person that will really work together for you. You need to interview those people in advance, whoever it might be. This is not me trying to drum up business. My sister is buying in another market right now, and the process is going fairly well, but he didn't go over the contract with her at all before, just, emailed something over. She signed it, wrote an offer, didn't even know what the terms were. You want somebody who's going to educate you on the process the entire way and really be looking out for your best interests. Mortgage person, same thing. You need somebody who's going to get back to you, really explain your options and make sure that you're, making the right decision for yourself. So when you have a good team of people working for you, you're going to be fine no matter the market. But you should also, have realistic expectations and make sure that in advance, kind of how the market's going, and don't look too high in the price point, because right now you're most likely going to go to the top of your budget in order to get something,
Yeah, that's something that I've always found. I've bought a number of different houses and sold houses, and it seems to me like you have a number, and then I don't know, do most people stick and stay at that number that they originally thought they were going to, or does everybody like me sort of end up pushing themselves to this is my top, and
Most people.
what do you see?
Yeah, most people push it. I mean, maybe not to their total max, and then maybe not as much in prior years, but right now people are really maxing out. People will say to me, "Oh, I'm really hoping to stay under, 300," and I'm like, because they read you their list of wishes, and I'll say, well, you're gonna have to compromise, or you're going to have to increase the budget. Those are your decisions, right? And I've always really been priding myself on getting people a good deal, and that's, I think, the toughest thing with this market for me is that, so now it's like, instead of trying to get them a good deal, it's trying to get them the best deal that I can while still getting them the house, which is really hard, because fighting to get them the house. The stuff that the number of offers that we're writing for people would astound you, especially in like the lower price point, like up to 400 in Saratoga County. Oh my gosh. And even especially the really young buyers that are just starting out, it's terrible time for them to be buying.
Yes. Someone that I work with, she just purchased a home, and they lost quite a number of homes that they put offers out on, but they just didn't get the offer. They just didn't get it. They didn't get the bid. And the home she eventually did get, she only saw once before she went to like closing.
Oh yeah, for sure. You're only seeing a house once. I know. Back in the day, we would show you a house. We would show you several houses in one day, right? Then we'd go back to your favorites, especially first-time buyers. Then they'd bring like their parents or someone else for an opinion. This is great. Then we decide, write an offer. We counter back and forth. And no, now it's like we see the house. There's agents waiting to get in behind us. There was an agent here before us. You know, everyone's in masks. It's so different. And you have 20
Yeah.
kids in the house alone. You can't bring extra people with you. And then you've got to make a decision because all offers are due tomorrow at 4.
Yeah. It's pretty bizarre.
Right. Yeah, because people still get, it's, you know, no matter how many times they've been burned, they still get a little bit attached to the next one. And they're, you know, we're all, you know, we're excited about it. Oh, there's literally, we say things like, oh, there's only 3 other offers. You know, we have a chance. And then, you know, they say, oh, well, wait, you know, this one was, well, your clients were really well qualified. This other one was cash, or, you know, there's always something better.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So, okay, so let's just go back and hit that other point of what are your, what would you say for sellers? What would be your, you know, suggestions for sellers? We did buyers.
Yep.
Let's go back on the other side and what's the suggestion for sellers?
Okay, so similarly with the seller, they should interview a realtor early on, bring the realtor in, walk through the house, discuss any projects that need to be taken care of before listing. And obviously decluttering and power washing and just a general tidying and deep cleaning of the inside are easy, you know, that's obvious. Sometimes there's bigger things that are happening consistently. Look at them in advance, because you don't want to leave the door open when you've got multiple offers and this heightened sense of urgency to buy. And like I said, people are overspending. You don't want something really obvious to be wrong that they will then cancel for in inspections. You don't want to leave the door open for negotiations again or for a cancellation. So like I met with a gentleman the other day who has this great house. He's been making all these cosmetic updates, which is awesome, that I had recommended. Well, then he mentions that, you know, his water pressure is really low, and you know, we talked about his gallons per minute. He's on a well point, and you know, it's going to fail at an inspection. So we were weighing, you know, he said, oh, well, I could give them a credit. And it's like, well, you could, but it's going to be a negative, you know, from the get-go when people are negotiating. So then they're going to negotiate with that in their mind, and then they're going to still ask for money off when they test it, you know? So it's like, I know it's not fun to spend the money up front before you sell it, but if you really want in this market to get as much as you can't have obvious, you know, glaring defects that people are going to have to negotiate on, because they're going to want as much money back as they can.
Yeah. So however you can get in the door you should try to close up all your patch all your
Look for
things
beforehand, you know, things like that. Make sure that while the pretty things are all important, you know, if there's mechanical things that are wrong, buyers are going to figure it out, and then they're going to be upset because they felt like they spent more than they may have originally planned, right? So
yes. My son just bought a home, and 3 days in, the refrigerator died.
Good luck getting a refrigerator right now.
Well, they got a refrigerator, but I mean,
that's remarkable. I've been waiting for one myself for like months.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yours are behind. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, weird things like that too. Yeah, we purchased a bed, and it's defective, the mattress. So we've been waiting like probably 7 months now for another bed.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know.
Go figure.
Hollywood Adirondack chairs in like April, and they never came. Still nice.
So bizarre.
And I don't even want them anymore. But it's
right. I don't want them now. Keep them.
Think about it next May.
Yeah, I appreciated talking to you about this. I think you covered some great points for sellers and for buyers in terms of, you know, what people need to think about before they either list their house or get out there and go looking for a house in this really busy market.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was fun. It was a great
Totally a pleasure.
So thank you.
You're welcome. See you soon.
All right, take care.
Night, everybody.